very warm welcome to you. My name is Ogoch Kuka-Ona, and you're welcome to Frontline. You will agree with me that the political arena has been in the news, seriously in the news for a while now. This is because the general election is just by the corner. But the judiciary seems to have been taking a little of the time as people have been commenting on the order given by Justice Inyang Eku of the Federal High Court, Abuja, ordering Governor David Umahi and his deputy of Ebonyi State to vacate their offices because they defected from the PDP to the APC. Well, it has been raising comments, reactions, and analysis, and of course, views. On Frontline this week, we are going to be looking at that. We have gone to the street to speak to some legal practitioners in Edo State. First, the question we posed to them is, what is their view on defections?
A situation whereby one gets sponsorship of a particular political party because of its structure and then ascends to a political office and subsequently, for no just cause, defects to another political party, all in the name of strategizing or trying to align with the top, is most unfair and unjust. Of course, it kills the morale of those who have given one the platform to operate. And we are therefore not surprised that the Federal High Court recently, in the case that involved the governor of Ebonyi State, took the big stick on the governor of the state, and by so doing, restored sanity in what was hitherto seen as a practice which was seen as the normal. And for the first time, we now, of course, begun to see a decent plea, particularly with respect to our responsibilities and then our loyalty to our political parties. By what we have seen and what that judgment has been able to establish, which a judgment was lauded by so many persons within and outside the country. Sanity has been restored to our political system, regardless of whose works is God. And of course, persons now know that, look, if you come begging or kneeling to enjoy sponsorship of a particular political party, you cannot now go midway to disown that political party. The political party gave birth to you, gave you the platform to drive. The votes were, of course, cast to you on the fact that you are a member of that political party. But you know that more than 50-60% of our electorate, they vote political parties. We do not have an independent candidacy for now. And as such, no one attains political office by his own strength. You need the structure, the political party, to be able to, of course, to thrive and then to emerge. And that is why most of those who have attained or are kind of occupied political offices today must, as a matter of fact, identify with the key leading political parties like APC and PDP, except in rare circumstances like in Anambra State, where we have ABGA, of course. And if that is the practice, if that is what the experience that we've had over time, then it is not justifiable, and under no guise should an individual, of course, go after being elected on the platform of a political party, he now defects, all because he wants to align with the powers that be. He wants to enjoy federal or national recognition, and then he wants the federal government to course, give recognition to or put him on a very sound footing. That is not, with the greatest respect, it is not patriotism at all. We have to be patriotic not only to our country, but to our political parties and to their constituencies that elected us into office. Same applies also to those who, of course, are governorship aspirants, and then those who eventually make it to the government house in the respective 30 states of the federation. You should respect the supremacy of your party. You do not treat people because you feel that you've gotten something from them and then you now dump them. No one would, of course, like that. So, in the final analysis, the point I am making is that the under the law and then under the doctrine and the understanding of morality, under law and morality, it is unfair, it is unjust, and it is unreasonable for one to decamp from his political party when in office and then go to another political party and therefore abandon your people midway.
When you talk of defection, that is to say change position. In yesteryears, it used to be cross the carpet from the reigning party to the opposition party. And constitutionally, by chapter 4, one of the fundamental human rights is that you have freedom of association. You have freedom to belong to any political party. But that is ordinarily as it should be. But the instant case wherein a governor, for example, wins election and is given a certificate of return, the certificate of return bears clearly, unambiguously, that bearer Mr. A of Party B has been given this certificate of return, meaning that that certificate cannot be valid without the party. Mr. A of Party B has been given this certificate of return. That certificate is not given individually, and it is to the party. So a part cannot be greater than a whole. So if so facto, one person is a governor because he's a governor having won election of such and such a party. So if that person defects, he is defecting to another party, legally speaking, the certificate of return is no more valid because certificate of return specifies that Mr. A has been given this certificate and he's from such and such a party. But if he was not holding a political executive position, well, you are free to, as an ordinary member, to defect. So the issue, luckily, is a continuous process. The case will go to the appellate courts, from appellate court to the Supreme Court. Although the instant case is that the governor in issue tried to use a court of coordinate jurisdiction. That's the same parameter with the Federal High Court in Ebonyi. He used Ebonyi State High Court. But the proper thing is that to vacate such a standing judgment, it should be done by higher or appellate court. But the judiciary there is to interpret the law, and we expect it to prevail. But simpliciter, it is clear that candidate A of such party B won the election. And if you look at it, the ballot paper has the picture, the insignia of political parties. It doesn't have the names of persons. So in reality, indeed and in truth, it is the party that won the election and not the individual. Anybody carrying the privileges of the party, if he now jettisons that party, goes to another party, it should even be honorable enough to resign the executive position that he's enjoying. He's no more in the party under which platform he was elected.
And of course, how can the electoral process be strengthened to avoid such, problems?
The electoral process can be strengthened through um, the amendments of our Electoral Act. Of course, recently something was done in ensuring that the Act itself uh, is able to resolve certain issues and areas of concerns. I'm particularly uh, grateful to the National Assembly, which has not shown any form of, do I say, political affinity to become a rubber stamp to Mr. President and the executive. You recall that it took quite some time for Mr. President to assent to that bill, to the amendment bill. And recently, when Mr. President forwarded same bill to the National Assembly for amendment, the debate was expected. The National Assembly again showed that it has the strength, the kind of the moral right and justification to do what they did. As a matter of fact, you would agree with me that part of what we saw there was the fact that certain amendments, for instance, if you have occupied a political office or you are a political appointee, you are expected to resign your appointment before you can, of course, seek political office, political elective office. So, this is part of what has been introduced to strengthen the electoral process. Of course, INEC has shown to a very large extent, independence. We've seen progressive elections with a kind of, to a large extent, transparent and credibility in our electoral processes. And that, again, is brought about because of certain provisions in our law. So the legislative framework is such that INEC, for our electoral process to be strengthened, to be enhanced, the laws, the Electoral Act must be strengthened, must be, of course, amended to further, of course, allow for proper participation, and then those areas that tend to create doubts and create a situation where our courts are now found giving conflicting judgments and the rest of them should be taken care of. Those ambiguous provisions of the law should be done away with so that it is easier for the courts to now make pronouncements on certain areas. Then if you too, as a political appointee, or one who is seeking political office, finds that, oh, you have not done well, or you have the clear provisions of the law are not, do not support what you are doing, of course, you will have no choice but to quit and then allow a seamless transition in our political offices. And besides that too, the Electoral Act should also create provisions that will tend to monitor what goes on in our political parties. You must agree with me that the political parties have not fared well at all. From time to time, you hear of dual congresses or primaries, and then you hear that certain things are not, it is not too well with a political party. So if INEC, by the enabling provisions of the Electoral Act, are given opportunity to also monitor, just as they are doing, what the political parties are doing, then of course, our politicians will sit up. We will not, by so doing, begin to experience a situation where someone is elected into office, and then within a year or two, is told that his seat, the Congress that, or primaries that brought him into office, was an illegal Congress or primaries. At the end of the day, he's asked to vacate office. So these are the legislative framework, the supervisory role of INEC should be strengthened.
To strengthen the electoral process, I recommend as a constitutional lawyer that we should go for direct primaries. What do we mean by direct primary? It means all the party members, all the card-carrying members of the party should be the one to decide who will represent them. This is at variance with the present situation when you now have delegates conference. With delegates, it means the leaders, the governor, the senator will choose representatives to go and choose who will represent that party. That does not reflect the totality of membership because delegates are few. Their consciences could be mortgaged, they could be bribed. So to strengthen the electoral process in that what touches all should be approved by all. There should be direct voting, direct primaries as if it was a general election. Every member should have a stake on it. When a group of leaders take it upon themselves to use their acolytes, their favorites as delegates to choose a party representative, it is not good to the welfare or totality of the electoral process. Every card-carrying member should be involved in the selection of candidates for the primaries as well as the candidate for the main election. The more, the merrier.
And of course, this issue of constitution amendments came up. And finally, they share their views and thoughts on the rule of law in Nigeria, if there is any need.
The rule of law presupposes that there should, of course, be equality before the law, respect for the rule of law, and then, of course, that people should respect the provisions of our laws, particularly the Constitution, the ground norm. That the Constitution should be amended, and what ought to be amended is something that we can see over and over again. There has been a lot of clamor for the amendment of our Constitution. We've had the first, second, third, fifth to sixth, seventh alteration, now seventh alteration of the Constitution. There are a lot of provisions in our Constitution that need to be looked at. The people recently, the National Assembly has commenced the amendment, the process of amendment of our Constitution. Of course, we had regional, states and regional public hearing on the amendment or review of our Constitution. A lot of areas were in the front burner, part of which was autonomy for our local government system. There is need for our local government to be truly and truly autonomous. By so doing, we will have a tier of government that is truly independent and can, of course, actually bring development to our grassroots. And you know that the local government is the grassroots, is the party that is closest to the ordinary man and the grassroots. That arm of government, that tier of government sincerely needs to enjoy autonomy in terms of governance and financial too, so that it is not just seen as a kind of a tier of government that comes up only where the governor wants the body to exist, and you don't just import or just plant any person to just man that tier of government. We must emphasize that very seriously. And then the creation of states, that has also been in the front burner. And all these require constitutional amendments. We've talked about the most recent, which is the most turbulent too, and I subscribe to a situation where, of course, there should be a reconsideration of the gender abuse before the National Assembly. Our women constitute the over 70% of the voting class, and as such, they ought to be properly and adequately represented. So that is an area that also bothers us. Of course, financial autonomy for the judiciary. The judiciary is the last hope of the common man. For it to be truly virile and effective and efficient, it ought to enjoy financial autonomy. A situation where our judges go cap in hand begging the executive for intervention of assistance does not portend well for our nation, and as such, it would, of course, tend to stagnate our democracy. Democracy would, of course, not enjoy a pride of place if we do not look at this very salient area, which has enjoyed a lot of condemnation over time. That's the way the system is now. So people, scholars, judicial activists, and then legal minds within and outside have clamored for a kind of financial autonomy for the judiciary. And then, of course, we've talked about also other areas of need, the need for also the local government election to be determined by INEC instead of the State Independent Electoral Commission. The state police, of course, is one area too, which is of great concern. We've looked at also the area of the Attorney General, both of the state and of the federation. The office of the Attorney General should be separated from that of the Commissioner for Justice, so that this office, particularly the Attorney General's office, can work without political interference. It can truly be the office of the Attorney General, which would not, whose action would truly reflect the position of the legal minds, and then the judicial mind position too, rather than having it a kind of rub of knob with the executive.
In the Nigerian system, legal system as it were, it is susceptible to change and amendments. Before independence, 1959 constitution that ushered in independence, we had a constitution, although it was parliamentary system, Westminster system. Then, by 1979, after the military took over again, there was another constitution in 1979, and we call it 1979 constitution. 1989 too, there was another constitution, 1989 constitution. Then 1999 constitution is the latest. So going by that scenario, the 1999 constitution is due for review because times have changed. Circumstances have changed. We are now even in electronic system. So 1999, going by every 10 year renewal, this present constitution we are petition should have been changed in 2009. Another one should have even been amended 2019. Here we are, 2022, no amendments yet. The rule of law means obeisance to the rule of law and the Constitution, because Chapter 1, Section 1 of the 1999 Constitution says that the Constitution is supreme. It is binding on every persons and authorities within the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Then any other law, semi, demi, quasi law that is inconsistent with the Constitution, to that extent stands null and void. Some associations, some groups, some political parties, they have their laws. Those ones have to be in tandem with the ground norm, with the rule of law, with the Constitution. If where it disagrees, that other lateral side Constitution is null and void. The Constitution is the rule of law. It is binding on everybody as per Chapter 1, Section 1 of the extant Constitution 1999, and it is even overdue for amendment.
One thing is for sure, this topic will continue to generate reactions and comments for a very long time. This is a judgment that has thrown up political debates among the people. All right, we hope you've gathered one or two things, and all these are geared towards nation building. Thank you for watching. Do join us again, same time, that is 9:30 in the morning, Tuesday, for another package. Bye for now.